Okie dokie. Welcome back to my channel. I am EG and this is a Wednesday Reads book review video. Now, this week was sort of an unusual week because the book I was going to read ended up being wonky, so that didn't happen. Instead, I read a book by CF Welburn called The Linguist. Now, he gave this to me for a weekend snack because Linguist, and also we had talked about it in the interview I did with him a while back. And much like the Ashen Levels, it was really good. Now, honestly, I mean, okay, you hand me anything with linguist or words or, you know, conlangs or linguistic theory, and I am a happy camper. Because, yeah, language is a thing that I like. Oodles. So, anyways, okay, so the premise of this story follows the finding of a feral child and then the theory that a person untouched by human language or animal communication would be then able to speak the original language, the natural language of the gods. In this instance, it was a very interesting story. Now, if you haven't heard of feral child syndrome, it's not pleasant. Basically, what happens is that children who are abandoned by people, who grow up, you know, in the wild, basically, without any support structure, on their own, sometimes in severe cases of abuse or neglect, they basically have had no socialization, no contact with language at all, and it's really bad. Language development happens when you are a young child. Theoretically, when you are born, you have the ability to learn any language because your mind is super elastic and flexible, and that is why it is easier for children to pick up multiple languages than it is for adults. However, if you do not get exposed to language at a certain point, or the language that you've been exposed to is limited by age, I think 13 was the official date, then you have a harder time learning language. There have been a couple of different instances of feral children who have been found after, say, age 13, 12, 13, right in there when puberty starts, and people have tried to teach them language and tried to teach them, you know, proper socialization, and it's extremely difficult. And that is because the elasticity of the brain sort of stops at that point. Everything that you are becomes a little bit more solidified, and by the time you reach adulthood, you're pretty much, those patterns are set. Now, you can develop new patterns. It is not impossible for people like adults to learn a new language, but the foundation has to already be there for a language to be learned. So if you have no language, then it becomes very difficult. All that is to say that this book follows a feral child who was found in a cave system. He was then brought to civilization, and the main character, Garton Mead, wants to study this child to see if this child can speak the language of the divine. So what happens is he studies this child over 3 years. He and his wife Elizabeth become sort of attached to this child. The child, Peter, never really learns their language fully, and he never really integrates fully, but there is enough there for Garton to say that there is the language of the divine. Now, of course, there are other forces in play. There is the Alcad, who is sort of the, I would call him a sort of ducal leader. He's in charge, basically, and he was the one who claimed the feral child and said, I want him to be my entertainment, a plaything, basically. And the linguist said, no, please, let me help. And there's a lot of behind-the-scene politics and theory that goes into this, which was really fascinating, and actually it was very well explained, given the fact that feral child syndrome, and this idea of the first language, the natural language, the original language, is one that linguists have been dealing with for a very, very long time. Yeah, it's quite fascinating. So that was very interesting. Now, this book read, honestly, a lot like Goethe. If you translate Goethe, the original Goethe, like his Faust, and you translate it into English, this book sounds a lot like that, and it was great because it was written from a first-person sort of journal perspective, and which you don't often see in fantasy novels, and it was great. It was very well done. It was very consistent. The language was wonderful. I am fond of that sort of language, and this I saw also in the Ashen Levels, on a different scale, but again it was repeated there, and that's why that book is one of my best reads of the year books. So the language was wonderful, the linguistic principles were wonderful, and then there was the world building. It felt a lot like the Romantic Germanic period, the Sturm-und-Drang period, that was happening during the time which Goethe was writing, and all of that. It was very interesting, the world building. Maybe that's because I have experience with Goethe and his contemporaries. I don't know, but it was very interesting. It was very well done, even in such a limited space as a journal, which is, you know, by nature a flawed narration. Anyways, I'm gonna stop extemporating on language because honestly, I know not everyone cares as much as I do, but take my word for it, language was wonderful. You don't have to be a linguist to appreciate this. I really liked it. The one critique I have is that the ending was a bit wonky. I mean, the very ending, the revelation that comes about, which I can't tell you about because spoilers, that was, it was lovely. But there were a couple of instances where I felt like it was a little bit weird, like how to say this without spoiling the novel. The reunion was perhaps rushed. Otherwise, it was quite good. Yeah, I think that didn't spoil anything, did it? Unknown. Anyways, for a light snack, it was absolutely lovely, and I'm now really kind of annoyed because I have so many linguistic things I want to do. So thank you for CF Welburn for giving me that book and for writing it, frankly, because dealing with feral child syndrome is not an easy topic. It can be very difficult, and I think this was done very well, and I liked it a lot. And it's going to go right up next to the Ashen Levels on my list of best books this year, so yeah. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. I guess I will see you next time. Have a fantastic day, and go look at words, because words are wonderful, no matter what form they're in. Anyways, I will see you next time. Bye.